Last week I was listening to this story on the radio about a former Marine veteran, I think it was a combat veteran in Afghanistan, who when he came back to the States started coaching football. And football has been the highlight of his life, as he tells it. Coach Kennedy, who's coached for about 7 years, adores the kids that he coaches. He loves being a football coach, the ability he has to mold those kids, to be a role model for those kids. And he just enjoys being with them and coaching them in the game of football. His practice after every single game is to go out to the middle of the field, win or lose, and to take a knee and for 15 seconds just say a short prayer, short private prayer himself. Eventually, apparently, some of his students started to join him, and over time, the majority of the team goes out and joins him in that prayer at the end of the game. He's never asked them to, he's never forced them to, certainly, but many of them on their own go to join him and take a knee for 15 seconds after every game, win or lose. One of the parents of those kids was so impressed with this, was so impressed with Coach Kennedy as a role model, and the fact that he would go out there, win or lose, and say this prayer after every single game, that this parent went to the superintendent of that district and told him about it in praise of Coach Kennedy, to give him accolades, to tell the superintendent what a great job Coach Kennedy was doing. Well, the superintendent didn't think it was all that great. In fact, as the superintendent investigated what was going on, he decided that what Coach Kennedy was doing was a terrible thing and shouldn't be allowed anymore. So he gave Coach Kennedy an ultimatum: either stop saying your prayer after the end of each game or be fired. And Coach Kennedy, figuring to himself, and actually, he shared this publicly now, said to himself, if I am going to have any integrity at all, if I'm going to be a good role model to these kids, if I was willing to spill my blood for the sake of this country, for what it believes in, for the rights that we are given in this country, then I have to continue this practice, even if it means losing the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that's exactly what happened. After that game, that next game, after getting that ultimatum, he went out to the middle of the field, took a knee, and promptly was fired. In April, his case will be heard by the Supreme Court. And apparently, according to the experts that I was listening to on this radio show, this is a huge litmus test for religious freedom in America. Now, I don't know all the details of this case. I only know what I heard on the radio, and there may be a lot more to the story. And I'm certainly aware that people in Coach Kennedy's position, teachers, coaches, role models, those people have influence on the people they're in charge of, their players, their students, and so forth, even when they don't force or coerce or try to influence them explicitly. That just by going to the center of the field after the game each time is something that his students are paying attention to, and there's a way in which he has a lot of influence on them, subtle influence on them. I get that. But I also wonder what people are so afraid of about that. I mean, there are teachers, for example, that drive up into a school parking lot with a sticker, a bumper sticker on the back of their car, a bumper sticker that supports some kind of political party or some kind of political position. The kids they have in class see that. They know that. They know what car, as a former teacher I could tell you, they know what car you drive. They pay attention to those things. They know what bumper stickers you have. How is that any different? Or like my baseball coaches when I was growing up, who after the games would go out to the middle of the parking lot in public view and have a few beers while we were waiting for our rides, waiting for our parents to pick us up. Nobody saw a problem with those things, sees a problem with those things. So what are people so afraid about when it comes to religion? Now, I get if religion is being forced or coerced, or there's some kind of manipulation in it, or somebody's proselytizing, then I get that. There is a reason to fear that. That can lead to all kinds of divisiveness and even violence, fanaticism and violence. But it seems like more and more in America, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not fanatical about this stuff, but even somebody like me who tends to not freak out about this stuff at all, can't help but noticing that there's been an erosion of the ability to freely express your religion in America. It seems like people are okay if you consider it a matter of personal experience and keep it to yourself, as long as it's a private affair. But that's not what the Constitution guarantees. What the Constitution guarantees is the freedom of religious expression, the ability to bring it to the public square, the ability to let it inform your values and how you conduct your life and how you talk and speak and interact with people, to be able to talk about it like you talk about everything else, as long as you're doing it respectfully, as long as you're not using violence to get your views across or to force them on other people. It allows for that. And I don't think that's just an American thing. In fact, I think the Founding Fathers, what they had in mind was bigger than just an American thing. The reason they did it is because they realized it's a human thing, that it's what guarantees your dignity as a human. You can't be fully human without the ability to express yourself when it comes to your deepest religious beliefs, whether those happen to be about an actual God, a personal God, or an impersonal being, or an abstract, impersonal ultimate reality, or about nothing at all, about an atheistic or agnostic viewpoint. Whatever views you have on the biggest questions of life, I suspect that the reason they put that into the Constitution was because you can't be fully human unless you're able to express those beliefs you have about those things. That's a big part of what makes us human beings. And if we are to have real dignity as human beings, and intrinsic dignity, if that's to be respected, then our ability to freely express ourselves religiously has to be respected also. And so I come back to this question: what are people so afraid of? When people express their religious beliefs, when they simply put them out there for others to consider, to look at, what are people so afraid of? From a Christian perspective, actually, from as far as I know, all the major religions which I've studied in depth, none of them would ever say, at least in what they teach, maybe in practice this goes down differently, but in terms of what they teach, none of them would say that their faith system, their worldview, can be forced or compelled or manipulated on somebody else, or even proselytized on somebody else. It is something that has to be freely chosen, for it to be authentic, to be real, to truly be the faith that these major traditions are espousing. It has to be something freely chosen. It can't be like, a cult where somebody is brainwashed into it. It has to be something that you deliberate upon and freely choose for it to be real, to be authentic, to be the thing that they're espousing. And that certainly is true from a Christian viewpoint. From a Christian viewpoint, Jesus came, suffered, and died for the sake of our freedom, to save us, certainly if we want it, but out of the absolute, complete respect for our freedom, our dignity, our ability to say no to the gospel. God respects that so much that he won't force himself, his love upon us. In fact, it can't be. That's kind of central to the whole Christian project, the whole Christian worldview is free will. So from a Christian viewpoint, there is no fear about having other views espoused, views other than the Christian faith. Christianity will fight to the point of giving our lives, shedding our blood, for the fact that other people should be able to freely express their religious views, that all people should have the right, the ability to look at the different religious views, worldviews, philosophies, all different ideas, that they should all be placed out there on the marketplace of ideas. And from a Christian viewpoint, there is no fear in that, not only because it's intrinsic to who we are, to our nature, it's what is essential to being fully human, but from a Christian point, there's no fear from that. There's no desire to force this view on other people, because when that happens, people gravitate towards Christianity. There's no need for Christians to do that, because people in overwhelming numbers are turning to Christianity when it is placed out there on the marketplace of ideas. I've talked about this in previous blogs, but for the first time in history, this past century, the 20th century, because of communication, because the world is shrinking and so forth, the different major religious traditions, what they believe, is out there in the marketplace of ideas. Most people throughout the world have an awareness of those different traditions. And when they're allowed to choose, and in most of the world now people can, they are overwhelmingly choosing Christianity. Christianity is the only worldwide religion, the only religion to actually cross over cultural boundaries, cultural limitations, conditioning. And the only place where Christianity isn't, at least it's hard to come by numbers, so we can't tell for sure, where it isn't thriving in this way, is in the Mideast, the one place where that kind of freedom is completely suppressed, where to apostatize from Islam to go to Christianity would mean certain death and means estrangement from your family and economic disaster and so forth. So it's only in that one place where religious freedom is completely compromised, there's a stronghold, that Christianity isn't thriving. So from a Christian perspective, the viewpoint is we don't need to force our views on other people. We don't need to proselytize. We just need to be able to express our faith. And if people want to share that, if they want the gospel for themselves, then that is awesome. But if they don't, then the most fundamental thing we believe, that we respect, is their freedom to say no to that. So there is nothing to be afraid of when it comes to this idea of religious expression, as long as it's done appropriately, as long, again, as it's not being done by the use of manipulation or violence or anything like that. If people respectfully enter the marketplace of ideas with their faith, there is nothing to fear from that. And I pray that the Supreme Court will see that. So what do you think about religious freedom in America in the year 2022? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anything about this case, if you're aware of it, or how I outlined it, or any other thoughts or experiences you have. You can go to the Contact EJ page of the Raising Jesus website and leave them there. I look forward to hearing from you.